Bradley Williams, on the other hand, this is his first Elite Series win since the first ever Pro Tour event at Maple Hill in 2016. And that's his only other Elite Series win. Back then it was an NT/Pro Tour. This was just Elite Series, which happened to be 6 years ago exactly this weekend.
It's crazy.
And Paige Pierce also won that event.
That's crazy.
So Paige Pierce and Bradley Williams won on the 6-year anniversary of their win.
This has been my favorite ending of a tournament this year.
Yeah, it was pretty thrilling. But first, I mean, So Bradley Williams, if you go back and you watch like 2015, 2016 coverage and stuff, especially in like the Texas area, you're going to see Bradley Williams a lot.
Yeah.
This guy back then, even today, was known as like the smoothest thrower of the disc, all of this stuff. There was a few events that went down that kind of took him away from the sport temporarily. He was actually suspended by the PDGA for a little bit. Whether that was an overreaction or not, that was something that players were very vocal about. Back in 2016, I remember that. There's even some like somewhat protests that went against PDGA, but that's all water under the bridge at this point. He has come back and slowly kind of stepped back up to where he was. And this was kind of like a moment, at least for me as a fan, of like him getting back to where he was in 2015, 2016.
Yeah.
Because
they had said, who is it that he's been like training with?
Oh, Ricky.
Was it Ricky that
he's been like traveling with Ricky, and he's been doing a lot with.
Because I noticed in the commentary they said that he had been training and doing disc golf strong.
Yeah.
And so
so he's always been a very athletic guy. He's always been one of the smoothest backhand throwers of the disc. His always
shot shaping is just crazy.
One thing I loved about his interview after was he actually talked about. Like he was talking, the way he talked about a throw, you can tell that he thinks a lot deeper about his backhand than a lot of people do. Maybe not a lot of Touring pros, but Touring pros don't really talk about it that much because he was talking about like how, early in the round he was just getting a lot of pop, a lot of spin. He kept using like I was getting a lot of spin on my disc and stuff like that. And he kept using phrases like that, like it was really like snapping out of my hand. I was getting a lot of spin.
He talks about footing a lot.
Yeah, like he's a very like meticulous, think through his throws type of player, very angle control.
Yeah.
And then he said that he felt like something was like pulling him through the course. Like he was basically, it's one of those moments in golf is when it happens the most, but in any individual sport, really in any sport, it's kind of like a flow state is what seemed like he was describing, where basically you just like, many golfers have described it. Tiger Woods described it multiple times where it's almost like an out of body experience where like, it doesn't even feel like you're throwing the disc anymore. Like you're just, or for Tiger, hitting the ball anymore. Like it's just your muscle memory and everything takes over, and it's just like a crazy experience.
Yeah,
I'd love to feel it one day, where you basically
maybe with gyro, man.
You just can't mess up. Like things just go throughout the round, and you just
that's very cool.
That's wild. I didn't even know he existed.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like a new players like Silas, I assumed that was going to be it because like. And they called him the veteran's veteran on tour. I thought it was funny because he doesn't seem that old. I don't think he is. I would more put Greg Barsby in that category. But I think Bradley fits that thing of everyone.
Like only like pros know how good Bradley is.
Everyone on tour that's been on tour for an extended period of time knows who Bradley is, and they would probably all say he's one of the best backhand throwers in the game. But a new player to the sport would have no clue who he is.
He's not a consumer favorite.
I was so surprised. His interview, he was just so calm.
That's what I was going to say.
He was so just like mellow. Like,
well, I think that's a big part of it was, like some of the history with Bradley previously was he didn't have as good of a reputation in the 2015, 2016 era.
Yeah.
Even before then, because he had like, a little, actually, it was almost worse than Nico outbursts to a certain extent, like kicking baskets. He shoulder checked a guy. That was the whole controversial one. There were things like that, and then that's when he got suspended by the PDGA. All this, and then he's went through like anger management, all this stuff, to where now completely different player. Well, same player, completely different personality. Like, but before he was kind of electric because it wasn't like watching Nico, but to a certain extent it was. Because like there is even clips, you can find them on YouTube. Again, completely different player now. So this is like you'd be looking into a different past of Bradley. So don't take, when you watch these old clips of him, don't take that as like, oh man, this guy sucks. But back then, there was like clips of him like getting under people's skin, getting into their like, I forget exactly what it was. There's one I'm thinking of where like they're getting scores and he was like getting into people's heads, like making them repeat their scores. Like he was kind of a dirty player to a certain extent back then. But he was very, very good. And his throws were incredible. Then I remember him coming back to the disc golf scene, and he's a completely different personality when he's on the course. Just super calm, super mellow. You don't really see him react a lot one way or the other. He just is like very present. He also seems like a much more fun person to play with nowadays on cards and stuff. It seems like a lot of players want to be around him when previously that wasn't the case. So like he's done a complete 180, which is awesome because I think it's much cooler to see him win as this person than like when he won previously. He
feels like a redemption.
Yeah, when he won previously, he was somewhat like the villain of disc golf to a certain extent. And so, yeah, very great to see him.
I noticed that whenever he was like being so calm during that interview, first of all, I thought the questions were really good. They were like just pretty decent, normal questions.
Yeah.
And I think he had one of the best interviews I've seen so far because he had real answers. It wasn't just like feeling good, like crazy man, and then I don't know, I was just throwing well.
Well, he was just he's so composed.
Yeah,
he's always composed.
And I was wondering because whenever he just looked so calm, and Silas brought up he was so calm, and I was like, oh, I think he's just in shock. And then Anthony, he was like, well, it seemed like my footing was pretty decent on a lot. I was getting a lot of good footing, was getting popping. I was like, he's not in shock.
Well,
he's just very collected.
Is he hasn't won on a big stage a lot, but he used to clean house in B tiers, C tiers, A tiers, to where he's won a ton of events. To where like sometimes when a player wins on a pro tour stage, it's by far their biggest win in their career, which this I think is Bradley Williams' biggest win in his career.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's still like they haven't won in a long time or something like that. He was like very dominant in Texas, Oklahoma, that whole area to where he has won a lot. So it wasn't like to him where this was a massive win. His previous most he'd made winning a tournament was $3,500 in the A tier. The most he won in the Elite Series was $2,500 back in 2016. This was $8,000 is what Terry said.
Huge difference.
So this is like the most he's won at a tournament. It's safe to say that.
One thing I wanted to add, Hunter, is that this proved your point. One thing that you talked about on the preview show was that the main key to victory with this course was to throw well.
Yeah.
Bradley Williams, one of the best throwers in our sport, best shot shaper. We've said it multiple times. He's known as being an incredible shot shaper, having that incredible backhand.
Yeah.
And he won. And that, which is way crazier than AB winning.
Yes.
If AB had won, it would have been way less surprising, even not being there.
Yeah. Now, other thing that we talked about previously that finally happened this tournament that made the live coverage electric. It could have been slightly more electric, but it just is how the cookie crumbled. Was Ricky was the one pushing him, and he was pushing him from chase card.
Yeah.
So you were seeing like a hole or two ahead, Ricky hitting ridiculous putts.
Yeah.
From like, I mean, he hit one that was like 65 feet from his knee. He hit another one that was like, might as well have been a throw in. And it just, everything was lining up that I was like, Ricky's going to win. And what was happening coincidentally at the exact same time, which according to Bradley's interview after, I don't know what he likes being called. We're going to call him Bradley. According to Bradley's interview after, he didn't know this was going on, but like timing wise, it seemed like he did. Because every time you were watching live, Ricky would hit a massive putt and then Bradley would have a chance to still make a birdie and like clank it off the front cage. You'd be like, oh my word. Like now Ricky and him are tied again. This is like hole 14 on. It was just happen time and time again. Then we get to hole 17. Ricky throws, it looked like a sake bomb slammer on a forehand flex line. Good shot, great line. So I love hole 17 at this course because it's that tight wood hole, really short. It's like hole 17 at USDGC where, but easier, but it's like a shot that no one should mess up. Yeah. On that level of play, no one should mess up. But then you add all the pressure and you get to a hole, it's like, I should never mess this up. People mess it up left and right. And I love a hole like that. As hole 17, I would hate it if it was hole 18. As hole 17, so you saw Ricky go long, and he's like behind this tree, but he has an open putt. And so everything leading up to this moment is like Ricky's going to hit this putt. That'll put him at 31 under. Then if he birdies on hole 18, 32 under, that's going to make Bradley basically go like birdie or birdie eagle. I forget exactly what hole he was on. It was going to make him have to get some birdies down the stretch. It was going to put pressure on him. But then Ricky clanked it off the cage, and like you could see it, like Ricky kind of like that was the moment I think Ricky first was like, I might not win, because up to that point he was just on another level. And then he taps out the 3, and then on hole 18 Ricky still could have went eagle got to like 32 and made Bradley have to do something. Or that might have put
to like
Ricky.
tie it up.
Yeah. It would have. Ricky would
So
have been
it
setting
would
the
have
pace.
gone to a playoff.
It would have made Bradley have to eagle.
I think it would have made Bradley have to equal
gotcha.
going into 18. But Ricky threw his drive. He crushed his drive, but he turned it over too much into the tall stuff. Still went for the eagle because he had to. Well, he didn't have to, but in his head he did. And then fell, threw it in the water.
That was definitely the play, though.
Yeah,
It was again that shot of you go for it, like you're trying to take the win. What I thought was interesting is in the interview, Bradley, because like Bradley threw a great drive, and then the commentators are saying the correct thing, like, hey, he could bogey and be okay here, basically. Like, or I think he needed to par, or basically what it was. He was in a great spot.
On hole 18?
Yeah, he's a great spot.
Well, yeah,
par
he,
one.
he could have just laid up.
Yeah.
But like he just went for it.
He laid up, so he's
That was
there, and then the commentators are saying the right thing. He just needs to lay up a second time, like lay up with a putter or something like that, then go across. It's a par 5, so if you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you're gonna be fine. No, he could have still birdied actually, because he could have laid up the second shot and then went for it and had a birdie, and then he steps up with a distance driver. Because like the only thing that could have ended this tournament for him at this point was if he went in the water.
Yeah.
So why bring the water into play?
Which it was very much in play. You could, I mean, obviously.
And he just, I mean, look, good for him. He went for the green, got to where all he had to do was lay up, which he kind of ran it, but lay up his eagle bid and then tap out the birdie and really secure the win. But when he did the interview, they asked him like, "Did you know Ricky was pushing you?" And his answer, I was like, he got bad information, because his answer, he basically said something along the lines of like, on the tee of 18.
No, he said he said I knew after my drive on 18.
Yeah, but then he said, so I knew like I have to go over the water, is what he said in the interview, which made me, because I immediately was like, you got bad information.
Yeah.
You didn't have to go over that water.
Yeah.
So basically, which puts a little bit more into perspective, because he apparently on that second shot felt pressure, like he has to go across the water for some reason.
He must have had bad information. You're
either
right.
that, or he must have thought he needed a birdie and thought going across the water and just being safe is my easiest birdie play, when really he could have parred. Is what it came down to.
Yeah, he could have just laid up.
But it didn't matter in the end. He took it down, and it was a very, very entertaining, because we also had Simon and Kyle pushing at different points to get into there.
That was crazy. They both went OB on hole 18.
Yeah, I thought Terry said something along the lines of like, it's like they're both sprinting to the podium but tripping each other or tripping themselves or something like that. But yeah, so you had Kyle and Simon. They were kind of in it at certain points. As it got later in the round, it became less and less believable that they were going to be able to do it. For a second, I was like, Simon's about to win 3 in a row, and he would have been the only player in the history of the Pro Tour to win 3 Pro Tour events in a row, which is crazy. Top line Pro Tour, not Silver Series.
Yeah.